Good evening, Mr. Bond fans, and welcome once again. With the No Time to Die promotional blitz well underway, there was a recent trailer that involved Ben Whishaw in character as Q that reminded me very strongly of one of the weirder pieces of Bond promo material I've ever come across, one that was designed to promote the fifth Bond film, You Only Live Twice. The suitably titled Welcome to Japan, Mr. Bond was an hour-long TV special designed to promote the, at that time, latest Bond film in the summer of 1967. The bulk of the content is made up of clips from previous Connery movies, as well as some sneak peek stuff of You Only Live Twice. But what makes this all the more remarkable is that it features some wraparound segments where Lois Maxwell and Desmond Llewellyn appear in character as Miss Moneypenny and Q respectively, along with actress Kate O'Mara, and chat about the various aspects of 007's previous adventures, prompting the relevant clips from those movies to be shown. Seeing those two actors in those roles is obviously the main reason for someone in this day and age to revisit the special, but there's just so much other weird stuff going on in it that I kinda just have to talk about it. It begins innocently enough with some edited clips from You Only Live Twice leading into the title sequence for the special. There's a bit of an odd choice of voiceover at one point though.
Mr. Bond, you only live twice.
Not sure what that's about. Like, are we supposed to think that the guy who Bond just bashed over the head is talking to him here? Anyway, things are about to get weirder as we then cut to some specifically shot material featuring an actress and her agent traveling to a screening of some dailies from The Only Live Twice, and she's talking about how hell-bent she is on starring in the next Bond film as James Bond's wife. This is all really bizarrely shot. There's a lot of reused footage, and we don't see either of the actors' faces in full clear view. They're obviously being dubbed.
I've made a wonderful career for you, my dear.
No, my success has made you a wonderful career.
I assume so that the same footage could be used and dubbed into other languages. Anyway, I do like the time capsule element of this stuff. Seeing the shots of London in the 60s, and I love all the random members of the public you spot here, and they're just staring right at the camera. I especially love this guy, who I assume was on his lunch break and just wanted to be on TV and is just casually loitering around underneath a massive James Bond poster. Then the thing cuts to some reused footage from Goldfinger of Bond and Moneypenny flirting, from which we segue into the newly shot material through the device of Moneypenny's framed still of herself and Bond from the film. I mean, did she have a covert photographer hiding in the wall to get this shot or something? Anyway, she's just going about her business before this gossipy madam turns up to spit some venom.
Poor girl. Looks like there's no hope for you now.
How about saying hi first?
What do you mean there's no hope for me now?
Well, haven't you heard? Your lover boy's getting married.
I do find it kind of hilarious that this lady is, like, almost frothing at the mouth over the fact that she has some potentially devastating news to deliver to Moneypenny. I mean, she's just so horrible.
James? Getting married? I don't believe it. To whom?
Well, I don't know that yet. It's classified.
But it's not you, is it? So you might as well just kill yourself. Moneypenny, bless her, does not rise to the bait and remains cool and calm while Little Miss Sunshine heads into M's office to deliver a file from J's section, apparently about Bond's impending marriage. So I guess that this footage is set while Bond is over in Japan getting on with his mission during You Only Live Twice. Anyway, this all prompts Moneypenny to start musing about Bond's past love interests before the coiffed gossip monger returns.
Did he say who it is? No luck.
And even if he did, I wouldn't tell you anyway. The pair then start running through a bunch of Bond's conquests from previous missions by sifting through a dossier on the subject. I mean, quite remarkable that all the information could be stored in a single folder. I'd have expected those cabinets behind Moneypenny to be bursting with papers on Bond's ex-lovers. This obviously prompts lots of corresponding clips from each Bond girl, with the pair commenting as we go, but they don't half go off on some bizarre tangents in places, particularly when Moneypenny takes a light-hearted approach to domestic abuse.
Does James Bond usually hit his women?
Oh, no. Sometimes they hit each other.
Around this point, the special seems to get bored with the Moneypenny segments and proceeds to edit together footage from Goldfinger and Dr. No, with Miss Tarot calling Bond away from his dalliance with Jill Masterton, which is all apparently an excuse to just show an edited down version of the car chase sequence from Dr. No. This is all supposed to be illustrations of what Moneypenny and her bitchy colleague are talking about, so I don't know quite how or why they went off on this particular tangent, but even more weirdly, we immediately cut to the fight sequence from Thunderball after this. I mean, are they just reading off random segments from past mission files? What's especially odd is Moneypenny's comment right after that Thunderball clip.
He'd never strike a girl who was wearing glasses.
No one in any of these clips has been wearing glasses. I have no idea what that comment refers to. Maybe the actress we saw earlier? I do love the reaction from the brunette blabbermouth here, though, who is clearly as baffled as I am by this strange statement and just glares at her. Anyway, time to sit up, folks. Q appears at this point. Hurrah! He has an appointment with M, and I just love how much Desmond Llewellyn is hamming up his role here.
Another rush job for 007.
It's awfully small.
And awfully dangerous.
What the hell? Did Q just blow up Whitehall? We have to wait a little while to find out, I guess, after what would have been a commercial break. We're back with that actress and her agent from earlier on, and the narration is doing a real number on bigging up this lady.
Of all the women that are seeking James Bond, this woman is potentially more dangerous to him than all the rest combined.
There's some really weird fourth wall breaking stuff that goes on here, like they're talking about Bond as if he's a real person who she is going to marry, and yet they're also talking about the producers of the movie, they're seeing rushes from the movie, they passed a poster for the movie. It's really strange. The narration is kind of bigging her up as if she's some kind of terrible villain, and all of this being intercut with all the stuff of Q and Moneypenny, it's a very strange blending of realities that I don't think makes any sense at all. I guess this is just tying into how much of the promotional material of the time conflated Sean Connery and James Bond. Sean Connery is James Bond, according to the posters, but it's really weird all the same. Back to Moneypenny now, who's definitely been hanging out with that blue-bloused backbiter too long, as her sassier side is starting to seep through.
Who could it be? Domino, the girl he met during Operation Thunderball. Domino was a very small fish in a very big pond. Strange girl, Domino. Every time James opened his mouth, she put her foot in it.
Alright, Moneypenny, what did Domino ever do to you? You know Moneypenny's going overboard when even her scandal-loving co-worker is hinting she rein it in a bit.
Well, she did save his life. Perhaps he feels grateful to her.
James Bond? If James were the grateful type, I'd be married to him and the mother of his 12 children.
Oh god, I've created a monster.
How about Fiona?
Fiona, the plump, pushy one?
Plump? What the hell, Moneypenny? In what sense of the word is this lady plump? This whole segment of the show even ends with Moneypenny sounding like she's actually going to go and murder all the surviving Bond girls.
James is certainly murder on women. But my big concern is with the ones that are still alive.
Can we get Moneypenny some Prozac or something? Once again, after a break for ads, we come back to the actress and her agent viewing rushes from You and Live Twice, and it's kind of cool that we get to see some clapperboard shots, and I do kind of love that the actress has a paperback of On Her Majesty's Secret Service on her lap, presumably as a reference to the next planned film in the series being based on that book. Anyway, after that, it's back to Moneypenny, who sums up a clip in which we see Rosa Klebb getting shot with more of her apparent murderous intent.
That's the way I'd like to see all of his girls get their kicks.
I can't wait for the next Bond movie to reveal that Moneypenny is actually the head of Spectre and the author of all of Bond's pain. I mean, she's acting seriously unhinged here. What's more disturbing is that the next time we see Moneypenny, she is headed down to Q Branch alone, and I didn't think I'd be nervous for that gossipy shrew, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Moneypenny had killed her and stuffed her into that filing cabinet she's been so worked up into a frenzy. But joking aside, the latter half of this special has all the stuff in it that I really like. We very rarely see Lois Maxwell and Desmond Llewellyn sharing the screen together, and a part of me does get quite a kick out of seeing them interact like this in a way that we wouldn't in the film series proper. Q especially is positively thrilled to receive a visit from Moneypenny, though of course, now that she's practically frothing at the mouth to find out more about Bond's supposed marriage, there isn't much in the way of pleasantries from her.
Moneypenny, what a delightful surprise. Well, you don't often come and visit me.
Oh, thank you, Q. You obviously know much more about this than I do. Do you know who the girl is?
Haven't a clue, Moneypenny, haven't a clue.
This sequence, of course, exists so that we can have segues to a bunch of clips of Bond using various gadgets and cars, through Q taking this opportunity to vent at Moneypenny about all his grievances about Bond's treatments of his products. I especially like this bit where he's talking about the attaché case, and I'm not sure if this was intended, this part that drops off, but I love how Moneypenny reacts to it.
My pride and joy. I remember the day I issued this to 007.
I can't tell if Lois Maxwell's breaking character or not, but I love how Q doesn't even flinch and just carries on complaining while Moneypenny is clearly only interested in bringing back the conversation to herself.
And look at it now. And to add insult to injury, 007 gets all the credit, and I get a nasty memo from M informing me that my department's going over budget.
Well, I'm sure M understands. Didn't he say anything to you about James and a woman?
Yes, but what about me and my problems? Q starts playing around with a bunch of weapons here, which I just love, and Desmond Llewellyn is clearly having an absolute time firing these things, and there are even all these parts of Little Nelly here, which leads into clips from the film of the flying contraption in use, which I'm sure would have been a great treat for audiences eagerly anticipating the latest Bond adventure back in the day. Bizarrely though, one of the gadgets that Q demonstrates here is an exploding egg, which I certainly don't recall being used in You Only Live Twice, nor how such a thing necessarily reads as being specific to Japan. I mean, surely Bond could assassinate a villain enjoying breakfast in most countries with such a device. Something about Q that I really love here is how his performance slips into eccentric tinkerer.
Now, you see that egg? Now watch. Nasty, eh?
Normally in his early appearances, he's a very no-nonsense, very stuffy sort of fellow, and this may well have been the first time that audiences ever saw the character actually smiling and having fun with these inventions, which I think is really cool.
Extremely powerful.
Things are brought to a disappointingly abrupt close. Q segues us into a glorified 5-minute trailer of You Only Live Twice, and we have just one more incredibly random shot of Moneypenny.
James Bond in Japan, facing death, and a fate worse than death.
I love how it's kind of like Moneypenny is watching and reacting to the trailer herself. I think every Bond trailer should utilize a shot of a startled-looking Lois Maxwell. Similarly, that actress is also mortified by the trailer, presumably dripping tears all over her lovely Fleming paperback, and then everything just kinda ends. There's really no wrap-up, and I know that this is effectively a glorified trailer for the upcoming Bond adventure, and the audiences of the time were probably more interested in the snippets and clips of that new film than they were the wraparound stuff with Q and Moneypenny, and I know that it was designed to be viewed once and not necessarily picked apart by fanboys online nearly 60 years later, but still. It would have been nice to end the wraparound segments with something leading into the film more. It does just stop, and while I have issues with the fourth wall breaking stuff and some of the clips play in really bizarre and random places, it is nonetheless an absolute delight to see Lois Maxwell and Desmond Llewellyn play their much beloved parts, and receive more screen time here than they do in some of the films. The very reason this thing exists was to hype up audiences for the new film and show them clips from films that obviously weren't available on a home media format at that time because home media barely existed, so it has to be judged against that context, of course, but this thing is still included on the You Only Live Twice Blu-ray and 2-disc DVD, so is it worth a Bond fan's time to give it a watch in this day and age? Well, if you're as fond of these characters as I am, it'd be hard to imagine that you wouldn't at least get a smile or two out of it, but be ready to skip through some of the longer clip segments if your interest starts to wane. So that's it for this time, Bond fans. I'd be really curious to know if any of you out there actually watched this when it went out on TV back in the 60s, or even if you have watched it like I did on the home media formats and you have opinions about it either way. I'd be curious to know what you think about whether or not this is worth a Bond fan's time to go back and revisit in this day and age. As always, links to my social medias are below, as well as a link to my Patreon page where you can go one step further in supporting this channel. And until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.